Rev up your engines!
Well, Ford is bolstering their production of their F-150 Lightning. Now they say if you order a truck today, you can have the truck by September. Well, all I have to say is with all the hype about them, how their range is absolutely crap. For example, the extended range one is $86,700. And that's the list price, right? Now, they say, oh, well, it's available for the $7,500 tax price. Who cares? You're still paying 70-something grand for an unproven electrical vehicle. They're turning all this stuff into a belief. Not that it's real, but it's a belief. So they just keep saying, oh, it's great, it's great. They're too expensive. They have a horrible range. Take the F-150 Lightning itself. The rated range is a line of baloney, right? Or maybe it's done on dynamometers. I don't know. In the real world, it's not aerodynamic like most electric cars are. So in the real world, it really doesn't go nearly as far as they say it will. Most of it has to do with it's the wrong shape. It weighs too much, right? People keep having this belief system that this is the future, this is now, right? Maybe it'll be the future quite some time from now, but it sure as heck isn't presently. And then pumping this out and getting these media idiots to call it's a slam dunk for Ford and EV. What a load of baloney. Now they say that they're going to produce 150,000 of these a year now, right? Now let's see what's really happening with this stuff. Because back in the day with all kinds of new models, I saw things that first couple of years, they saw 150, 200,000 of a certain model. But then it saturated the market and they couldn't give the cars away of the models that were hot sellers the first year or two or three. But then whoever wanted them bought them. And then, of course, if in case of these electric vehicles, they have problems, people say, ugh, I'm not going to buy another one of these, or I want to get rid of mine. Then the market will be flooded by used ones that nobody wants to buy. You know, now it's a game, it's a toy. But let's see what happens in a few years. They make them, will people buy them? You know, in the case of the past, often they didn't. So we'll find out. HWW, awesome man, said, I have bubbling coolant tank on my 2009 Pontiac. I take it to a bunch of mechanics. They can't figure out what's wrong. They say the head gasket's not leaking. We don't know what's wrong. Hell, cars overheat for a reason. They bubble because the pressure and temperature is getting so high, it bubbles off. Now, the guys you're dealing with are obviously idiots. I've got a video, how to fix an overheating car. Scotty, watch it on YouTube. It'll show you everything you can possibly test. Now, they said they tested to see if the head gasket was blown. That's not always such an accurate test. You can get cars that burn coolant, but the test won't show it. If the leak is in a certain place, it'll get into the radiator. But if the head gasket's leaking in other places, it won't show up on the test. If you have an internal head gasket leak between the coolant and the pistons, yes, then the test will show, indeed, you have exhaust gas in your radiator. And the test will go from blue liquid to yellow, and you know this, right? But on the other hand, if you got a leaking head gasket that's external, not internal to the piston rings, the test will show it's leaking because it's not going into the combustion chamber. It's leaking externally, and the test is not a valid test. I'll test that pluses and minuses, right? The guys you're dealing with are obviously idiots. They're supposed to be mechanics and understand. My video will show you everything it possibly could be, from a loose radiator cap, a clogged radiator, bad water pump, clogged up coolant inside the engine. You might have to flush your engine out. There's a lot of reasons they can overheat. Cooling fans don't work, but the guys you're dealing with are obviously idiots. Find another mechanic, start right there, or become a mechanic like I did and watch my video. And with some simple tests, you can do it all yourself and figure out what the heck's going on. Because there are a lot of idiots out there these days that have no notion of what they're doing fixing cars. Ultra Superman says, I got 2019 Lincoln, I have a front end vibration. I took it to service. I purchased new tires, and it still had the vibration. It only occurs 55 to 65 miles an hour. The dealership said the new tires were out of whack and did a road force balance, and that didn't fix it either. A lot of guys working on cars are idiots these days. They don't comprehend no picture. You have a speed wobble, 55 to 65, right? If the tires are balanced correctly, that would mean it's not a tire problem. And I can just about guarantee you it's not a tire problem. Because you said you had that same problem with the old tires. You got new tires thinking we'll fix it and it won't. I can pretty well tell you what's wrong with it is your alignment's off. Now, it may sound crazy. Most people think your front end alignment, if it's off, the car will pull to the left or to the right. Yes, that's normally the case. But rare conditions, when your alignment is off, you will get a speed wobble like that. I've seen many cars in the 55 years I've been working a car that had the same exact problem, and I personally looked at them. And I said, okay, there's no worn parts. You had the tires balanced twice. They still do it. You even switched the tires, it still did it. I said, get thee to a front-end alignment shop. I'm not a front-end alignment guy because I'm not going to go buy $100,000 of equipment to do something that you would have to do hundreds of them every month to make a profit. So I know good front-end guys. So I send them to the front-end guys. In this case, it was Cotton Brothers in Houston. What did they do? They aligned the front ends. And guess what? The speed wobble between 55 and 65 went away. So get thee to a good front-end alignment specialist. Forget the idiots you've been dealing with. They obviously don't understand anything about cars. They're just out there, oh, well, we don't know what's wrong. You're supposed to know what's wrong if you're a mechanic. You're supposed to understand the entirety of a car, not just one piece, right? All you probably need is an alignment because the tires didn't fix it anyways. And it did it before you changed the tires. And unless they're complete morons and there's like worn ball joint or a worn tie rod or a worn control joint. The idiots are supposed to be mechanics and check that stuff. I would say just start with another mechanic. And they might say, oh, you got a bad ball joint. That's all you need, right? But if it's not a worn part, it's out of alignment, and it will do that. I watch Scotty 315 says, my 19 Dodge Durango oil smells like gasoline. I went to a dealership. They said the valve cover gaskets are worn. They said gasoline's getting in oil because of that. I don't believe it. Yeah, I don't believe it. What a load of baloney. If your valve cover gaskets are leaking, oil will drip down. It'll get on the exhaust and smoke a little, and it might drip on the ground. That doesn't make gasoline get into the oil. If your oil smells like gasoline, you have what's called oil dilution. The oil is being diluted by gasoline. Now, it's a 2019 Durango with 110,000 miles. More commonly, you either got a leaking fuel injector or a leaking fuel pressure regulator that's dripping gas into the engine. But of course, if your engine's worn, the piston rings are worn, then gasoline will get by them into the oil and pollute it. You know, that can happen. If you have a fuel injector that's leaking too much fuel, that will do it. Is your gas mileage going down? You know, if your gas mileage is going down, yeah, then you definitely you're getting too much fuel into the engine. Then it dilutes into the oil and makes the oil smell like gasoline. But them saying it's a valve cover gasket, they're idiots to even insinuate that because that's a physical impossibility. Ed Janello says, Lexus dealer says I need $13,000 in repairs. I got a used 2010 Lexus RX 350 with 163,000 miles, runs like a champ, but the dealer says I need $16,000 worth of repair, including the head gasket. I bought it last Saturday for $8,800. I took it to the local dealer for oil and brake job, and then the guy says I need to spend all that money. Says the head gasket's leaking, need all kinds of work. Do you think I should get another diagnostic? Two of the things they're asking for is the radiator's leaking and they want $1,900, and the head gasket is leaking and they want 10 grand for fixing that. First, start someplace else. You can't trust these people. Any mechanic worth their salt can tell you if the head gasket is blown or not. And then to top it off, 10 grand to do a head gasket job is absurd. But even more absurd is $1,946 for a leaking radiator. You can get an aftermarket radiator for that thing for like $250. Take you maybe an hour or two to put one out. You stay away from dealers. That's why they call them stealerships. They're out to make money on people, right? I don't know if you need a head gasket job. That's a rare thing. I don't see them go out that often on those things. Maybe it is, but if it is, find another place to go. It's not a $10,000 job. Labor costs are maybe $2,800, and the parts are maybe $600 to $800, right? How they come up with $10,000 is beyond me. You know, it just shows what crooks these people are. They didn't even go by their own labor manual, so definitely go somewhere else and get another opinion. Xterra says my Nissan Xterra will not defrost when it idles. Now, after I drive a while, it heats the windshield. What could it be? Okay, well, I can tell you what it is. I see it all the time. It's either one of two things. Pray you're just low on coolant. If you're low on coolant, the highest point in your cooling system is the radiator heater core in the dash. So if you have air in the system, the air will migrate to the heater core. And it sounds nutty, but heater cores only work with hot water inside. If most of it is hot air, the hot air has a lower specific heat and it won't give you much heat, right? Then if you drive really faster, then some of that air will get pushed around and you'll get some hot air. Make sure you're not low on coolant. Great if you are, what an easy fix. But if you're not low on coolant, and it isn't easy, that means your heater core is clogged up. And when they get old and they're clogged up, when you're idling, you don't have much power, going slow. But when you go on a higher speed, the water pump's pumping harder, and then it can push the hot water through the heater core that's not completely clogged up, but it's somewhat clogged. And the more clogged it is, the less hot goes through it, and it won't put out much heat. And at higher speeds, like I said, it's got more pressure, so it will put out more heat then. Pray you're just low on coolant, because if you aren't, replacing the heater core on that is an uber expensive job. You got to take the whole dash apart. It is a pain in the rear end. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.